All right, welcome to the Triple Option. Here's our Week 10 reaction video. I'm your host this time, the quarterback, and with me as always is the B back, Mikey Britt,
Let's go with it.
and
Ducks
uh,
outside.
and we got the up back, Alex Humble.
If my analysis seems a little reserved today, I'm taking the LeBron James approach and being a little passive aggressive.
All right, let's just hope we can keep this show longer than Steve Spurrier's post game press conference. All right, so first, we'll go through each of our own teams' reactions. I guess I'll start off with probably the most disappointing game of the year, Georgia and Florida. It was 38-20, and it wasn't even really that close. A couple of Georgia touchdowns late. Um, it looked good at the start. Nick Chubb had a nice touchdown. He actually had a nice game statistically. It was kind of just stunning what happened. I mean, Florida, after the first quarter, we were still holding them, and then it looked like we were going to force them to kick a field goal, but they went for the fake and got it, and that really just took the wind out of Georgia's sail. After that, I mean, they scored like 31 unanswered. Georgia just could not stop Florida's run game, and Florida wasn't doing anything tricky. It wasn't like they were doing anything like what Auburn does. They were just lining up and just running it down Georgia's throat. And Georgia coming in had like the second best run defense in the SEC, and Florida had like the eighth worst or something like that. So it was total surprise. I remember seeing after the game, though, there were a couple players that said that they were overconfident coming into the game, and Mark Richt was kind of mad that they said that, so they probably won't be talking to the media in the future. But that doesn't surprise me. It's the second time they've come off a bye week and lost, and both times during the bye weeks, all they heard was, the first time was, oh, Georgia could be the number one team, like they look like the best. And now this week it was, oh, Florida's so terrible, Georgia should just run all over them. And I feel like they let it get to them. But give credit to Muschamp for having his team prepared and ready to go. Both the running backs had great days. Treon Harris only had to throw 6 passes, and he probably didn't even have to throw those. Just all-around domination. It was really sad to be a Georgia fan because it was just punishing.
I'll keep my analysis short on this game. I've been really down on Florida this year, all year long. But the thing about Florida is they still have Florida talent. They still have a lot of those 5 stars, 4 stars. Muschamp did recruit really well at the beginning of his tenure. It's kind of slowed down considerably with their lack of success in the last 2 years. But they still have guys who can make plays, and you saw it on Saturday. Just to be able to run the ball down Jeremy Pruitt's defense throat all game long, it was a message, and it was Muschamp. I mean, maybe it was his last hurrah, his final stand, but big win for Florida, an unexpected one at that.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say. It's unfortunate losing to what it seems like an inferior opponent, but I still don't understand the SEC. Like South Carolina beating Georgia, Georgia beating good teams, and it's like it just doesn't make much sense to me. Last college football, that's why it's fun. Any team can win on any, and we'll see. Georgia's still alive in the East, I guess. So
Yeah, we just need Missouri to lose the game, and then we'll control our own destiny if that happens. But
I mean,
yeah, it's almost become like a thing for Georgia just to kind of lay an egg when things are looking up. But it is what it is. Moving on, we got the Ducks and the Cardinal. That was an impressive game. Fortunately, I was able to watch most of it. I thought it was a big statement. Stanford had kind of been like the thorn in Oregon's side the last couple of years. Stanford obviously a little bit down this year, but still a threat, and Oregon just manhandled them. To me, even when the score was close, like 24-16, it didn't really feel that close, and Oregon was able to pull away. Mariota had a nice game on the ground. I thought he looked really good running the ball. I think this guy is the Heisman. He is the Heisman. Uh, Impressive. I think it sent a message to the rest of the country. I think for the last few years, people have kind of just been pointing at the Ducks and saying they can't line up and play football against big boys. They just win with like trickery or speed or whatever. But they went up against Stanford and they just controlled the game. They were able to do what they wanted on offense, and it was impressive.
Yeah, the last 2 years, I would have thought this outcome was more likely than the Ducks losing. Um, I'm not sure. I felt like that was kind of a national thing, too. Bias aside, I felt like I got vibes from the last 2 years that Oregon was going to run away. Oregon was favored in both games. Um, but Stanford just got it done. Their offensive line was better, more experienced, and Kevin Hogan was playing better football at the time. What really killed Oregon and what killed Stanford this year was that Stanford couldn't convert as well on third down. It's on third downs. The past 2 years, it seemed like Kevin Hogan was just uh, um, taking drives down the field, picking up third downs constantly with his legs and with his arm. And that was just really frustrating to watch. And it looked like um, then the Ducks forgot to tackle. But this team has, in my opinion, been the best team in the country when healthy. Um, this is a really nice win against a really good defense. Um, Stanford's defense coming into this week was #1 in the nation, which is very impressive, playing in the Pac-12. Michigan State was fifth. Michigan State was fifth because they played Oregon. So, yeah, very impressive. 45 points and 46 points against Stanford and Michigan State, respectively. Yeah, it's a dominant team, and I like Marcus's chances moving forward a lot. He's putting up the numbers, despite the blemish. I think Oregon's loss, as the season goes along, is looking more like an anomaly or directly because of injuries.
This game was kind of the emergence of the Oregon running game that I think we're going to see the rest of the year. There was the real contrast between Freeman and Tyner, and it was a beautiful thing to watch on Saturday. You had Tyner's speed on display, Freeman's power. Freeman probably has the better vision just to make those 4-yard carries into 8-yard carries that Tyner might get stopped at. But Tyner has that next level speed, and you saw it on Saturday. They were hitting Stanford's defense with big runs, and then Marcus was as advertised, and I think he really came into the game with a chip on his shoulder, having not beaten Stanford the last 2 years when they really should have. And props to the Ducks defense. They struggled against Cal the week before, but they were able to turn those long Stanford drives that had killed them in the past into 3 points or stops in their own territory, and that was huge because once Stanford got behind, you just had the feeling that their offense wasn't good enough to get them back in the game, and that just rang true. This Stanford team is not the same team that they've had the last couple of years. They haven't been able to run the ball like they had the last 2 years. The absence of Tyler Gaffney is huge for Stanford. You just saw it on Saturday night. They weren't able to establish the run the way they had in the past. And Kevin Hogan, without those weapons that he's had around him on the offensive line and running the ball, kind of got exposed a little bit more against the Duck defense on Saturday. But all around, an impressive victory for the Ducks.
Yeah, watching the Duck game, I remember specifically one play where Thomas Tyner broke into the secondary, hit the B button, and got into the end zone for the score. And I remember turning to my parents and saying, I played against that kid in middle school. Can you believe that? And I almost felt impressed just to be on the same field as he was after that play. I don't think I tackled him at all when we played. I think I missed the only tackle I tried.
I
But
don't think our team tackled him. We tackled him like twice.
yeah, we could go on about how terrible our 8th grade defense and 7th grade defense was, but we'll talk about Florida State and Louisville instead. Thursday night game, those always seem to be dangerous, especially this late in the season. Fortunately, I was able to watch this one from my football headquarters, Buffalo Wild Wings. It was not looking good early for Alex. He actually quit the live tweeting because it was that frustrating. Unfortunately, his team didn't quit on him. I thought it was all around impressive. I thought Dalvin Cook made huge plays for Florida State. He had long runs for touchdowns. He also had a bunch of, I'm pretty sure it was consecutive, where he had like 4 straight catches for first downs. I thought those were big, helping sustain drives, get back into the game, take the lead, take control of the game. Really impressive stuff. Statistically, at least in terms of interceptions, it was actually Winston's career worst game. But I actually thought, just from a leadership, from a great player, from a quarterback, from your team leader, from a Heisman standpoint, I thought it was a tremendous game from Winston. And he's actually in my top 3 for the Heisman now. I thought that was just an incredible performance on the road. I'm sure most college football fans remember watching a football game involving Louisville where the quarterback was hobbled but played through it, and everybody thought that guy was a hero. And here it was happening again. This time it was on the team that wasn't Louisville, but still nonetheless, I thought it was great. It was definitely, I was actually rooting for Florida State, so it helped add to my birthday, but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Florida State gave you the birthday present that I was trying to send to you, or from Utah. Yeah, they had me nervous at first. From the very outset of the game, it became apparent that they were going to have some troubles stopping Devontae Parker, I believe. And they hit that big play over the middle. And the Florida State defense picked up right where they left off in the Notre Dame game with a goal line stand to start the game. And I thought, okay, here we go. And then Florida State's offense never really got things going in the first half. Some 3-and-outs and just some bad plays. And then the interceptions. And Michael Dyer, I don't know how many teams he's played for at this point in his career. And I don't know how you can play in college football for that long. But he had actually his best game touchdown. I had 3 touchdowns, over 125 yards rushing against that Florida State defense. But thankfully, a lot of that was in the first half. And a lot of people don't know this, but Florida State had 6 linebackers out in that game. And sophomore linebacker Matthew Thomas was playing injured in the game because they didn't have reserves to play. And Reggie Northrup, number 5, the middle linebacker, is vastly undersized for the run. And so there was a lot of concerns going into halftime. Florida State's not going to be able to stop the run. They're not going to be able to win the game. Well, they came out at half, and that Florida State defense, they sent a message. They stopped Louisville on all their runs in the second half. They really shut them down. Louisville didn't have a third down conversion until extremely late in the game. And then how about Jameis Winston? He was a gambling man on Thursday. It was like he was playing 500 again. I've said it earlier in the season. Sometimes you get good Jameis, sometimes you get bad Jameis, but you know what you're going to get from Jameis from a leadership standpoint. And one of the interceptions wasn't really his fault. Travis Rudolph quit on the route. It was a crazy pass. Jameis Winston threw it into triple coverage, but if Travis Rudolph continues on the route, it's probably not intercepted. It's probably a 20-yard gain. But how about the freshman for Florida State? 28 points scored by freshmen in the second half alone. All true freshmen, all 5-star recruits, all from the state of Florida. Travis Rudolph, Ermon Lane, and Dalvin Cook. It was just a huge coming out party for the freshmen. And it's a huge thing moving forward for them, gaining confidence in that offense, and just the whole team gaining confidence that no matter the deficit, no matter the score, the time, anything, they believe that they're going to win. And I was watching post-game interviews, and that was just the overall message the team had. They don't care what the score is. They think they're going to win at any given point, and you can't discount them. It's been a pretty fun season, but it's been a nail-biting season.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's a good thing. Apollos Hester was on an official visit uh, at Louisville. Stormed into the Florida State locker room. You know what? They had us in the first half. I'm not gonna lie, but sometimes in life you start out slow. Jameis, famous. Oh man, uh, he's got the ingredients to be great, I think, and I'm really impressed with him. I'm impressed with how he's been playing, especially last year. Uh, and then this game in the second half, really impressive. I think it's still going to be interesting whether he or Marcus goes first in the draft. But yeah, right now, like I think Florida State has a huge target on their back, being the champions. Um, we see this a lot in sports. Even when a bunch of guys are coming back, same roster coming back, like the Boston Red Sox, for example, this year, it's hard to repeat. You just have that target on your back, and it's hard to stay hungry. Um, there's something to be said about winning ball games, though, and Florida State has that switch where they can turn it on and they can just decide to go out and win a ball game. Um, it'll be interesting to see if they get down to a better opponent like that, they can come back. We saw that a little bit in the national championship game last year, but I don't know. We'll see. Florida State looks good, but that switch, I don't know if they'll find it every week.
Yeah, they're definitely playing with fire. I got two little quick notes before we wrap up on the Florida State coverage. Jameis Winston's worst interception game of his career, but his best defensive game. First career forced fumble since middle school, according to Jameis. And showed some good technique. Didn't quit on the play, punched the ball out, and luck was on Florida State's side a couple times with fumbles, especially that first half touchdown right before the end of the half. And then second little note, cornerback Ronald Darby continued his self-proclaimed streak of not allowing a touchdown. He hasn't given up a touchdown since October 24th, 2012, and he started every game for Florida State since. He's kind of tooting his own horn on that streak, but no one can refute him. Darby and Williams, they're very talented corners, and they played admirably against Parker. Parker got away with a crazy push-off in the second half that I don't know how didn't get called. But they hung in there, and they competed well against a pretty strong Louisville receiving corps.
A Florida State fan complaining about pass interference? I was actually going to say something about that with Jameis Winston. Most people Heisman moments this year would be escaping the pocket, making a great throw. I thought it was really impressive how he got in there on the tackle and was able to force the ball. And I don't remember exactly, but I believe they scored on that drive, so that was pretty big. And I don't remember what you said his name was, but that number 5 on the defense, I just referred to as the other Winston. He's come up big in the past few weeks, making plays. All right. So moving on, other big games around the country, Auburn and Ole Miss. This game was a lot of fun to watch, unless you were a Rebels fan at the end of the game. Unfortunate situation with Laquan Treadwell. Man, I can't imagine being a fan of Ole Miss, watching that play, just going from the absolute high of coming back and winning to the low of fumbling, losing, and having your star wide receiver hurt for the rest of the season. Other than that, I thought that Ole Miss did a nice job bouncing back, at least on offense. Defense, you're not going to do a lot to be able to slow down Auburn. They're just impressive. We didn't have our show before, but I thought that Cameron Artis-Payne would be breakout player of the week. And he had over 100 yards rushing the score. He was pretty good. Nick Marshall had another really good game. He continues to play solid through the air and then do a lot with his legs to help keep Auburn in football games. Auburn is looking really good. I know some people think that they might be the best team. They did lose to Mississippi State, but we'll see what happens. I think that if a second SEC team does get into the playoffs, it'll be Auburn. They're that good.
Gus Malzahn has his magic pixie dust out again, and teams on the schedule better watch out because there's there's something weird that happens in Auburn games, especially late in the game, that just lets them win the game. And I mean, it's like the Florida State gene. Maybe it got rubbed off in the national championship. Um, they stop Bo Wallace and force that fumble late in the fourth quarter, and then they get the goal line fumble from Treadwell to preserve the victory. And it was like, wow, Auburn is. Start talking about team of destiny, and you start talking about fluke plays. But I mean, when they can score and play the offensive game that they play, they're always going to be in the game late, which puts their defense and puts their offense in situations late in the game where they can come up with these crazy plays to win. And like you said, I was impressed with Artis Payne and Nick Marshall. He doesn't get a lot of talk in the Heisman race, but he's so efficient. He takes care of the ball. He runs that offense like a wizard. He's like Malzahn's little protege, just running the read options, the keepers, everything, and he just runs it to perfection. And I think that efficiency is what enables Auburn to be so good. And just another crazy SEC game, another week in the SEC West, and a tough break for Ole Miss, and literally a tough break for Laquan Treadwell. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to say. Ole Miss has been really on the rise last year and this year especially, coming up into the top 5 this year. I think they're a really good team, though. I don't think this is like them just getting up to a hot start, being highly ranked, and then falling off. I think they ran into some teams that are just a little bit better than them. So yeah, it's good to see Ole Miss stepping up. Auburn, though, yeah. I really like Nick Marshall. Malzahn's doing big things. Even at Arkansas State, he was doing well. So that's great to see. When your name's Casanova, you're probably gonna want to make some plays to hold down that name. So it's cool to see Casanova McKenzie with that fumble recovery at the end of the game. Yeah, if my parents named me something else, I might just be an SEC running back right now. But Auburn moving up to number 3 in the country. I think that's about right. It's arguable. I mean, not really, but their one blemish you could probably say is better than Oregon's. If you want to talk about injuries, but we'll just not and say that Auburn's has a better blemish than Oregon. I think they're right at number 3, and yeah, I agree that they'll probably creep into the Final Four, especially if Michigan State loses this weekend.
I think it's tough to call at this point in the season with Auburn's remaining schedule.
Yeah, you're right.
But looking at both of their losses, Oregon and Auburn, they both kind of seem like anomalies just because Auburn turned the ball over so much in the first half of that Mississippi State game, and then they were just kind of out of the game. And that's really uncharacteristic of them, not how they play football. And just like Oregon doesn't play football with reserve offensive linemen. So both of those teams have kind of bounced back nicely, although Auburn has been playing with fire a little bit more recently than Oregon.
Yeah, and we'll get into all of this stuff in our playoff prediction video, but yeah, definitely true. A very atypical game from Auburn, but because they definitely are a very good football team. Even on the defensive side, not great at holding teams to low points, but they do make plays when they have to. Over in Alex's favorite territory, the Wild Wild West, we had TCU, West Virginia. West Virginia refused to win. I thought that was kind of disappointing. They were at home. They had a late fourth quarter 2-possession lead over TCU. And TCU, I guess, on the fortunate end of one of these comeback wins. You got to give credit to Gary Patterson for having his team be able to be in that position. Trevon Boykin didn't have a great day, at least compared to his 7 touchdown standards, but able to get the job done. I thought that the running back Catalon had a big day for them. It was probably a big reason why they're able to win. It's always a luxury to have kickers who can hit game winners like that. I thought that it was a pretty good win for TCU. I think it's fair that they didn't move up into the top four like a lot of people had thought that they might. They're definitely still in contention. A game against Kansas State will really be able to tell us whether they are a playoff team, but as of now, I guess they just keep squeaking out wins, and we'll see what happens.
Once again, the turnover bug kind of struck West Virginia hard. Clint Trickett, as the game moved on, you could just see his confidence was shot, and Holgerson's confidence in him was shot as well. And Holgerson, I mean, it was like he thought the game was over at the end of the third quarter. He just wanted to kneel the ball down and get that thing to zeros. And unfortunately for him, he didn't on his home field. And I almost felt for him because he had those two signature wins, the big Baylor win, and go on the road against Oklahoma State, who is down. But to go on the road following a big win like that, pick up the win, and then they were in such good position, especially after the defense forced that fumble from Doxson and scooped and score. But they were never able to establish their passing game. It wasn't a West Virginia game that we've been accustomed to seeing, which is actually kudos to their defense because we are accustomed to seeing their defense get destroyed and their offense have to bail them out. Well, this game it was a kind of reverse of that. Offense was really struggling, but the defense really kept him in the game and helped him out. Clint Trickett, it was the paradox of Kevin White. He got confused out there. He saw two Kevin Whites. He didn't know which one to throw to, and then it got him all messed up because Kevin White was playing for TCU, and maybe he thought other TCU players were actually his teammates. No, but it was a great game by Kevin White against the more well-known Kevin White, holding him to 3 catches, 25 yards. And a big win for TCU. We're kind of at that point in the season where it's all about winning now, and a lot of the wins are a lot less glamorous than they were in weeks 4 and 5. It's just about pulling it out.
Yeah, a quote often said by commentators, especially when someone's playing like Oregon, Baylor. I mean, TCU put up 82 points this year. It's that you need touchdowns. You can't take field goals. West Virginia kicked a field goal from the 4-yard line and the 6-yard line, and 3 field goals overall, and they ended up losing the ball game by 1 point. So, yeah, that quote definitely held true in that game. It seemed like there was pretty mediocre quarterback play on both sides. Trevon Boykin, who had like 7 touchdowns and like video game numbers, like playing on like rookie. He only went 12 of 30, 166 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And Trickett, not well, like you said. He's paradox for Kevin White. 15 26, 162, a touchdown, and 2 picks. I think TCU is really good. It's interesting that they're ranked ahead of Baylor when they lost to Baylor and they have the same records. Strength of schedule maybe, but head-to-head, I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Great win for TCU, though. And I look forward to this Kansas State game this weekend. That's where game day should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, like Alex said, that was not the typical game that we're used to seeing for West Virginia on offense, but I think you have to give credit to Gary Patterson's defensive group. I think maybe we've just kind of become accustomed to seeing Big 12 teams just air it out, shoot out. Well, both of these teams actually have really good defenses, and I think TCU's defense is the reason that they're in the playoff hunt. So we'll move on to the next game out west. We had Utah and Arizona State. Most people were probably asleep when this one was going on. This went to overtime. It was a close game. It was pretty ugly. It was really ugly. Arizona State was able to pull it out. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to watch a lot of it, but looking over some highlights and stats, I was impressed by how Arizona State's defense played. I guess I still had that UCLA impression left in my head. I mean, 62 points or whatever it was, that's kind of hard to get over, but I thought that was good. Bounce back. Just to be able to play such a tough game against a Utah team who haven't really been the greatest on offense, but they have a very, very good weapon in the backfield, and they had a quarterback that was dual threat and showed that he's capable of, I don't like to use the term game manager, but manage the game and be able to keep Utah in position to win. Uh, yeah, I mean, but like Alex said earlier to me, is that Travis Wilson for the past 2 weeks has just been garbage throwing the ball. 57 against Arizona State, totally unacceptable, especially if you want to win your South Division or Pac-12 at all. You got to play better than that. But credit to the Sun Devils, and I think that could be a big boost for Oregon. Should be a good game if things play out that way. Oregon versus Arizona State, that'll be fun.
This was a defensive game through and through, and it's kind of been Utah's signature this year. Make the game ugly and kind of find a way to win at the end of the game. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. Automatic Andy got stuck in neutral there in overtime, missing 2 field goals. One didn't count. And then it was kind of a case of overcorrecting. He pushed the first one, and you could almost see the mental process going through his mind. Don't push it, and he pulled it. But as far as the game went, just another unacceptable performance from Travis Wilson. We were kind of tooting his horn after the USC win and overlooking that Oregon State game where only threw for 62 yards. But putting those 2 games together, he's had 119 yards throwing in 2 road games combined. That's just not going to get it done in the Pac-12. It allowed Arizona State's defense to key on Devontae Booker. Very talented, but I mean you can only do so much when a team is putting 8, 9 guys in the box. And it's been impressive to see the maturation of the Arizona State defense. Will Sutton was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year last year. He's gone, and so they've kind of had to overcome that and just come together as a group. And as this season has progressed, they have gotten a lot better, which will be interesting moving forward to this Notre Dame game this week to see how they handle Everett Golson in the Notre Dame offense. And then as far as Arizona State from the offensive side of the ball, I'm not a big Taylor Kelly fan myself, but he got the job done. He got the win. But Jalen Strong, he's maybe my favorite receiver in the Pac-12. So physically gifted, so strong, so quick. Kind of ironic to call him Strong with the last name being Strong. It suits him well. But there was a couple throws where it was like, wow, he is completely covered. But he's got an NFL-type body. He's in that Amari Cooper, Kevin White mold where you just throw him the ball and he's going to make plays. And he came up big for Arizona State when they needed him, and they got the job done at home.
Important to note that Arizona State is their lone loss. Taylor Kelly didn't start. They did kind of get blown out. I believe it was 52-17 against UCLA. But that goes to show you that Taylor Kelly does make a difference for this team. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see the game against Notre Dame. Arizona State played Wisconsin the last couple of years as a nice non-conference game, and so maybe they're used to playing solid, big, good non-conference teams.
They actually did play Notre Dame last year too.
Oh yeah.
In South Bend.
Yeah.
Well, I remember that now. It was cool that ASU jumped from 14-9 and Utah stayed put. Even in a low-scoring game, I think these teams have been proving all year that they're pretty solid. Seems like Utah's kind of quarterback game manager right now. No, I'm just thinking of Alex Smith, really, but he was a great college quarterback. I really wanted Travis Wilson to continue to mature and become a better quarterback, but I think I overhyped him a little bit too much. But we'll see what he can do this next week. I'm stoked for this ASU Notre Dame game.
And I have one little final note. Sorry, Blake. The highlight of the game for me, this is just a really random play, but Mike Bercovici, the backup quarterback who threw the Hail Mary to Jalen Strong to beat USC, he has the better arm between him and Taylor Kelly, and it was very interesting to see. Arizona State got the ball late in the fourth quarter. They got the ball down to about the 40-yard line, and they put in Mike Bercovici to throw the Hail Mary over Taylor Kelly. So they were trying 2 for 2 for the Miracle. Came up with an interception this time off the bench cold. So I guess Miracle. I guess Mike Bercovici couldn't play for Auburn. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that is actually very interesting. A lot of not a lot of teams are willing to take out their starter for just one play like that.
Yeah, not many teams have a Hail Mary specialist off the bench.
Yeah. All right, so that'll wrap up this week's Week 10 reaction video. Stick around. We'll have some other Week 10 looking back at who we think leads the Heisman race or has moved into the Heisman race. Then we'll have our Week 11 prediction video too. All right, thanks for watching.